It's pretty exciting. TEDxWomen in Ottawa for the first time. So why are you here? You're here because you care. I think you care deeply about the world that we live in, just like I do. Every single one of you cares. I believe that, and I know that, and I think you know that too. And if you don't know that, it's because that spark that's burning deep inside you probably just hasn't surfaced yet. I don't believe that people are lazy. I don't believe that they're full of apathy. I also don't think that they don't care. But we may feel a little bit disconnected. We may feel a little bit displaced, perhaps with our families, perhaps with our government, perhaps with our communities, maybe even our nation. I think that there is a deep, deep yearning for change. The human spirit is hungry for meaning and a sense of greater purpose. And I would suggest to you that that purpose is that we all want to change our world and leave it just a little bit better than we have found it. To be able to use your talents to improve the lives of others. Now, we live in a time when people are the wealthiest that they've ever been around the world. They're more educated than they've ever been, and they are more digitally connected than they have ever been. We can access information at astonishing rates. Google has even become a noun. Now, we can fly to Mars. We can indulge in $5 specialty coffees whenever we want. And we can fly to exotic locations to try to dismiss the drudgery of our everyday lives. And yet, children in our community here and around the world are hungry. Our fellow citizens are homeless. Girls are being traded for sex. And smog smothers the planet. Cities face the brunt of these challenges. Over 1 million people move to cities every week around the globe. By the year 2050, 2/3 of the world's population will be urban. And as they grow, the complexity of problems facing cities requires new ways of being. I say new ways of being for citizens, for institutions, for governments, for business. And today's theme of Tiny Ripples is pretty close to my heart. And I want to talk about how finding a sense of greater purpose and a sense of meaning in your life is actually and your place in the world is actually catalytic to creating changes. I'm going to go back, way back, to a ripple that was in my life that had a huge effect on me. I remember a conversation with my father when I was a teenager, and he said to me, and we were discussing career choices. He basically thought I should probably just be a housewife and learn how to cook. I come from a very patriarchal, conservative culture. And he told me that business is full of people who are greedy, and therefore not worthy of a pursuit, a career pursuit. So imagine my chagrin when I had to call him and tell him that I was going to go into business. But Dad, really, it's going to be different. I'm going to do it different. And at 20, I was inspired to drop out of university. It was my second time, the first time to get married, the second time for my second love, which turned out to be the body shop. I ended up having 4 locations, but also ended up being the youngest franchisee and opening up 2 at the same time. And I had no idea what I was doing. But I was moved, and I was moved by the founder, Anita Roddick's passionate revolution that business could be a vehicle for social change. So imagine, I could sell soap, I could sell face cream, and I could change the world. And the bonus was going to be that I was going to have a great complexion and I was going to smell really, really good. I still remember my kids actually coming and hugging me after I'd come home from work, and they'd be like nuzzling in my tummy and they'd be going like, "Mommy, you smell really, really good." So now I could go on for hours on how we challenged business norms, led bold social and environmental campaigns, partnered with small-scale suppliers around the globe to lift them out of poverty. And trailblazed corporate social responsibility practices. But I won't, because that could be a whole other talk. But what I would like to talk about is what I remember most. And what I remember most is how having a greater sense of meaning harnessed the passion of my teams, which actually ended up mostly being women, but a few men, and gave them the space to imagine new possibilities for themselves and new possibilities for their world. So everything. I mean, examples would be like they would set up a program. We set up this amazing program for immigrant women with language barriers to actually make our gifts, or set up a social enterprise making candles with homeless youth in Ottawa back in like 1990 when no one was talking about social enterprise, to fundraisers for recovery programs for for recovery programs for violence survivors, women's violence survivors, or an HIV and AIDS awareness campaign for our team members because one of our staff members actually, felt she had the space to say that, we need to do this at a time when the subject was still taboo and thought that the issue was really only for gay men. And actually, I'm thinking about that. I even from that training program, I actually got a call from a mother of one of the young girls who was on staff, and she accused me of leading some crazy cult that was encouraging rampant sex in young girls just because we were training them that you need to use a condom. But anyways, the comments kept life really, really real. There was bad ones, there was, great ones, and then there were sweet ones. I remember one, I was giving a body image workshop with teenage girls, and this 11-year-old came up to me afterwards and said to me, "The Body Shop," she goes, "You're really good people." And I was like, whoa, what does that mean? And I looked at her and I said, "You're really sweet. Thank you so much." And inside I was like, shit. How am I going to live up to that kind of expectation? That most of the time I had no idea what I was doing. I was making it up as I went along. And at that point, I had entered the Body Shop at so early in the stage that we were all making it up as we went along. But the interesting thing is that employees, customers, suppliers, and the community all wanted to come up and partner. And they wanted to be a part of this rabble-rousing, passionate tribe of people who was trying to change the world. We may not have changed the world, but we certainly influenced a lot of changes. And maybe we changed some people's world. So one of my biggest learnings from that wild roller coaster ride was that a business is really simply a collection of people. It's the individual talents and the values and the passions of these people that create amazingness that there's no way that I could have created on my own. And if what you create together has greater purpose and it makes a difference to society, you have fed the hungry human spirit of your people. Your business will thrive and your community will thrive. Now, before I explore the conditions that I have found nourish finding that sense of meaning in our lives, I want to switch gears a little bit and come a little bit closer and share another example. In 2008, I actually sold my business and took a deep dive into the unknown. Most people thought it was the bizarrest thing that I could have ever done. They're like, you'll never make that much money again. And I was, of course, thinking of my mortgage, my kids in school, and all those things. But my heart wasn't in my business anymore. And what I've found since then is that the hungry human spirit is something that hungry human spirit that wants this sense of meaning actually exists outside the business world, of course, as well. It exists in civil society and it exists in politics as well. Citizens want more responsibility and they actually want shared power. Think of the myriad of movements that are happening recently. I mean, yes, in all of our history, but recently, from occupations, from revolts, from referendums, and wars, such as the Arab Spring, the conflict in Syria, and even the Scottish referendum. Systems and governments will need to adapt. Although there are structural and systemic barriers to reclaiming citizen voice in civil society, people are beginning to imagine the possibilities. They're beginning to imagine the possibilities for nurturing conditions for healthy, participatory, democratic ecosystems. Now, here in Ottawa, there's a young grassroots organization called the Citizens Academy, founded by 5 passionate individuals. Yeah, I'm going to call myself passionate. I'm one of the founders. Our focus is local because we believe that our city is our collective home and that citizens want to and desire to and also have the responsibility to create their shared future. We want citizenry that is purposeful. As a business, a city, just as in business, a city at its root and at its simplest is a collection of people. And therefore, people are the heart of change. and people are the heart of cities. So democracy shouldn't be something that we have. Democracy should be something that we actually do, and it's something that we should practice every single day of our lives. So the programs that we do support citizen empowerment. And that fits into the theme of creating ripples, giving people skills, knowledge, and confidence to create the change that they're passionate about. Now, it's a place for imagining. It's imagining, a place for hope, and it's a place for possibility, and a place for action, for common good. Now, when the idea was launched, many thought that we were having some out-of-body experience. They said people don't care about civic issues and politics enough to take part in learning programs. Well, I can tell you that Ottawans care. Citizens keep showing up. In the past 2 years, we have over 120 applicants to a program that only takes 40. And they just come in and they are dreaming beyond our wildest dreams. There's concepts like pop-up coffee shops, a happiness survey, a sustainable public toilet campaign. You've probably heard of it, the Gotta Go campaign that was launched out of that, or the Ottawa Tool Library. Now, all these projects are ripples. Okay, they're ripples, and it's only the beginning. It's not only lofty, heroic, and seductive work that counts. The smaller, everyday sorts of projects, okay, that carry just as many chances to add value and to add goodness. Now, whatever our search for meaning means to each of us, I suggest that 4 necessary components need to exist to nourish our understanding of our place in our world and the change that we may want to make that happen. The first is a connection to community. That community can be based on geography, genders, language, culture, whatever. And even better if that community is diverse and it engages unusual suspects. Second is a space for the whole self to show up. The whole self with all of its sorrows, with all of its fears, with all of its dreams, and all of its ambitions. And why, might you ask? Because I think that allows us to connect with empathy, understanding, and compassion. And the third is responsibility. If you have responsibility for yourself, you also nurture responsibility for others. And with responsibility comes pride, comes ownership, comes confidence, and self-respect. And woven throughout all those 3 elements is the 4th element that I think is necessary, and that's relationships. Relationships that are based on trust, on integrity, and on transparency. So if we can nourish these conditions in as many places as possible in our community, we can create a tsunami of change and make the human spirit soar. We can shift the relationships between citizens, organizations, and sectors. We can break down silos. We can alter the systems that somehow keep us separated and divided. We can take the noise, the blame, and the judgment out of public discourse. We can move away from NIMBYism, not in my backyard, to YIMBYism. Yes, in my backyard. Citizens can move from I to we and yet hold the I sacred, because that's just as important as we. We can balance advocacy and inquiry and do things that are both good for me and my relationship with my neighbor, my neighborhood, my community, my city. This journey will take time. It will be a collision of 2 very, very different worlds. Complexity, uncertainty, chaos, and letting go versus the status quo of command and control. But wouldn't you agree that things worth living for require taking risk? We can do better for our cities, for our citizens, for our world. Imagine a place where everyone flourishes today and tomorrow. A place where everyone has abundant food, everyone has a home and a sense of belonging, perhaps the most important. And a place where all our children are loved and the aged are cared for. A more just and equitable world where everyone can live their potential. So you can call me an idealist, you can call me an optimist, you can call me stupid, you can even call me crazy. But if I say this is crazy and that dream is crazy, then we need more crazy in this world. If you're an entrepreneur or run a business, I ask you to create an organization with soul, where you audit not only your financial statements, but also your social and your environmental impact. It's not just necessary, it's a smart thing to do. If you're in government, I ask you to use progressive models of engaging with citizens so we can collectively design the communities that we want to live in, that are authentic to their people, their time, and their place. To citizens at large, I ask you to take on the responsibilities that come with your rights. Now, I'll just say, end with this, that I come from a very, very small village in rural India, in northern India. And we immigrated to Canada when I was just over 1 year old. And my father was a blue-collar worker. And my mother and my 6 sisters and I used to actually pick berries, just like migrant farmers in the States today, and maybe even today in Canada, to help our family survive. And it took a whole lot of sweat, a whole lot, maybe a bit of blood, and a lot of tears to actually thrive, okay? But I do remember the one thing that my mother had said to me, and she said to me, it took a whole lot of courage to leave our home in India for the imagined possibility of a better tomorrow for my 7 daughters, she said, in a strange and foreign place. So I say to you, dream boldly with me. Courageously search for your sense of meaning and your place in this world so you too can create your very own ripples. And as Viktor Frankl said, the meaning of life is to give life meaning. Thank you.